Good morning. I'm Gary DeWaal, and this is Bridging the Week for May 1st to 5th, and today is May 8th, 2017. In comment letters filed with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission by the May 1st due date, industry participants of all ilk broadly condemn proposed regulated automated trading, even as most recently modified by the Commission in November 2016. The two most common objections were that the proposed rules remain too prescriptive, and the revised approach for the CFTC to request algorithmic trading system source code through enhanced procedures still does not provide nearly the protections as mandatory requests by subpoena. Additionally, last week, the CFTC proposed to modify the ongoing obligation of chief compliance officers of future commission merchants and swap dealers and encourage kiss and tell, at least in the context of advising the CFTC on ways to make application of its rules more efficient. We have a lot to cover this week, so let's get started. The CFTC's November 2016 amended proposed rules governing algorithmic trading systems were roundly criticized by industry participants for not adequately addressing serious flaws in the initially proposed rule, as well as being too prescriptive. In addition, efforts by the CFTC to assuage industry concerns regarding the Commission's potential access to algorithmic trading system source code were generally regarded as inadequate. As you recall, the CFTC initially proposed Reg AT in November 2015. Generally, the proposed rule imposed significant pre-trade risk and other measures reasonably designed to avoid a compliance breach of any magnitude or an operational breakdown that was disruptive to a marketplace. The most controversial requirement the CFTC recommended was that persons known as AT persons impacted by its proposed rule would have to provide to the CFTC upon request their algorithmic trading system source code. Also criticized was the non-distinction between the responsibility of AT persons for their own developed source code and that of third parties. Following comments, the CFTC proposed a modified version of Reg AT in November 2016 that tried to address many of the initial criticisms. Typical of overall responses last week was the observation by FIA that, quote, proposed regulation AT is too prescriptive and is neither necessary nor appropriate to address the risks of electronic trading, end of quote. The International Commodity Exchange, Inc. acknowledged the efforts of the CFTC to address many of the criticisms of the Commission's initial proposal, but noted that it, quote, continues, however, to have concerns that the proposed rules remain overly prescriptive and complex, and in some instances, the purported benefit does not appear to be commensurate with the substantial costs associated with developing and implementing the required infrastructure, end of quote. The Managed Futures Association and the Alternative Investment Management Association expressed a combined concern regarding efforts to limit CFTC access to source code through enhanced special calls. According to the organizations, quote, we are concerned that the Commission is overreaching in its authority to seize intellectual property of registrants and that it has not made the case for why the existing subpoena process is not adequate to serve the Commission's ability to oversee markets, end of quote. Not all comments, however, were negative. Both Better Markets and American for Financial Reform generally supported the CFTC's revised Reg AT and indeed suggested additional protections. Last week, the CFTC proposed amendments to its required duties for chief compliance officers of future commission merchants and swap dealers, as well as to the mandatory content of compliance reports that CCOs must annually prepare and submit to the Commission. Most notably, the proposed rule amendments, if adopted, would eliminate the current requirement that the annual report identify each specific law provision and CFTC rule that pertain to an FCM and a swap dealer, and specifically tie each such provision to the precise firm, policies, and procedures that are reasonably designed to ensure compliance with such obligation. Instead, FCMs and swap dealers would solely be mandated to generally describe the firm policy and procedures that are reasonably designed to help ensure the firm's compliance with the law and CFTC rules related to its FCM and swap dealer business without providing provision-by-provision tie-outs. Comments on the CFTC proposal will be accepted for 60 days after the notice of proposed rulemaking is published in the Federal Register. And finally, Jay Clayton was sworn in as chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission last Thursday. Previously, he was nominated as chairman by President Donald Trump on January 20th and confirmed by the U.S. Senate on May 2nd. Separately, the CFTC formally solicited public input on how to apply its existing rules, regulations, and practices in a less onerous and costly way. This action is part of Project KISS, which stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid, an initiative announced by acting CFTC Chairman J. Christopher Giancarlo during March 2017 to reduce regulatory burdens by applying existing regulations, quote, in ways that are simpler, less burdensome, and less of a drag on the American economy, end of quote. The CFTC will accept comments in response to the solicitation through September 30th, 2017. The CFTC has established a specific portal on its website to accept KISS comments. Well, that's it for this week's edition of Bridging the Week. As always, there's more information in each article and more articles on the article version of Bridging the Week on the website. Check it out. I'm Gary DeWaal. Have a great week, and until the next edition of Bridging the Week, ciao.